The morning sun spills softly through the kitchen window. Evelyn stands by the counter, waiting for the kettle to sing. Her hands tremble slightly as she reaches for her cup. It's been months since she last tended to her garden. The once bright roses outside now bloom without her touch. She smiles faintly, but feels the weight in her lower back. Each bend, each stretch, carries a quiet reminder of pain. She used to move with ease, planting, pruning, lifting with grace. But lately, even tying her shoes feels like a mountain climb. The ache doesn't scream, it whispers, soft, persistent, uninvited. She sighs, thinking of the freedom her body once knew. One morning, at her doctor's gentle suggestion, she joins a local wellness class. She doesn't expect much, just a little relief, maybe a smile. But there, amidst the slow rhythm of breathing and laughter, something shifts. A simple motion, guided by a calm voice, changes her morning. Feet firm, knees soft, she bends gently toward her toes. For the first time in years, her back feels alive, not afraid. And as she rises again, she feels something deeper than movement. She feels hope. The morning light finds Evelyn sitting by the window, her tea cooling beside her. Outside, the street hums with gentle motion, dogs walking, children laughing, bikes gliding past. She watches it all like a spectator in her own life. Once she was part of that rhythm. Now, each step feels like a negotiation between courage and caution. Her lower back aches, not with sharp pain, but with a deep, steady pull. It's the kind that reminds her that time doesn't move backward. She used to start every day in her garden. The smell of earth, the sound of birds, the touch of cool soil in her hands. It grounded her. But the morning she tried to lift a pot and felt something twist sharply in her spine, everything changed. She remembers standing there, frozen, afraid to move, afraid to fall. Days turned into weeks, and the stiffness spread like vines through her body. She began sitting more, moving less, and telling herself she just needed rest. But rest didn't help. It only built walls between her and the world she loved. When she walked to the market, she noticed how her body leaned forward, compensating for the pain. She started using the railing when climbing stairs. Small things, but each one whispered the same truth. She was losing her freedom. Her daughter, Maya, visited one Sunday and saw the change. "Mum, you move like you're afraid of yourself," she said softly. Evelyn laughed it off, but the words stayed with her. That night, she looked at herself in the mirror and saw what Maya meant. Her reflection seemed smaller somehow, folded inward, uncertain. She missed the woman who walked with confidence, who laughed from her chest, who bent down to smell flowers without thinking twice. But she also knew that woman wasn't gone. She was waiting for Evelyn to take the first small step back toward herself. The next morning, Evelyn opened her laptop and searched for gentle back exercises for older adults. She found hundreds of results, stretches, yoga poses, breathing techniques. But one phrase caught her eye. Knee-to-toe bends, simple movement, big relief. She clicked on it. The video showed a calm instructor moving slowly, speaking kindly, encouraging progress over perfection. Evelyn watched the motion, feet flat, knees bent softly, back straight, body lowering with control. It looked easy, but to her it felt like a challenge. Could she really do that again? She hesitated, then stood. Her knees wobbled. Her back tensed, but she tried anyway. Her body complained, but her spirit whispered, "Keep going." She bent forward gently, just enough to feel her muscles awaken. And in that small movement, something shifted. It wasn't just physical. It was emotional, a quiet realization that maybe healing didn't mean returning to who she was. Maybe it meant discovering who she could still become. As she straightened up, her reflection in the window caught her eye again. This time she didn't see fear. She saw effort. She saw courage, and that was enough to begin. The community wellness center smelled faintly of eucalyptus and wooden floors. Evelyn stood by the doorway, holding her water bottle like a shield. A gentle hum of conversation filled the room, soft laughter, sneakers squeaking, chairs shifting. She almost turned back. She felt too old, too stiff, too unsure of what she was walking into. But a cheerful voice called out, "You must be Evelyn. Welcome, come on in." It was Coach Daniel, tall and smiling, with kind eyes that seemed to see her hesitation. He didn't rush her. He spoke softly, like someone who knew that patience could heal faster than any medicine. "We'll start slow today," he said. "This class is about movement, not perfection." Evelyn nodded, her heart racing a little faster than her steps. Around her, a small group of older adults stretched gently, chatting like old friends. One woman waved at her and said, "First time. Don't worry, we've all been there." The music started, slow, rhythmic, something peaceful that made her shoulders loosen. Coach Daniel demonstrated the first move. "Knee to toe bends," he announced. "A simple motion to reconnect your body and your breath." He stood tall, feet hip-width apart, knees soft. Then with a steady exhale, he bent slowly toward his toes, arms resting on his thighs for balance. "Go only as far as you're comfortable," he said. "This is not about touching your toes. It's about learning to listen again." Evelyn followed. Her body protested at first, stiff like an old door hinge. But Daniel's voice kept her calm. She bent a little, paused, and rose back up slowly. Something inside her, something long ignored, began to respond. She tried again, her breath sinking with the motion. Bend. Pause. Rise. The simplicity of it surprised her. It wasn't painful. It was grounding, almost soothing. Her back didn't scream, it sighed. Daniel walked among the class, encouraging each person gently. "Movement is memory," he said. "Every time you bend, your body remembers what it can do." Evelyn smiled faintly, realizing how long she'd forgotten to move without fear. After a few repetitions, Daniel clapped his hands softly. "Good," he said. "Now close your eyes for a moment. Feel your breath. Feel the strength still living in you." The room quieted. Evelyn stood tall again, her eyes closed, her breath steady. For the first time in a long while, she felt her body not as an obstacle, but as part of her again. When the session ended, Daniel handed her a small booklet titled "Daily Movements for Freedom." He said, "Start with 3 bends each morning. That's all it takes." Evelyn smiled and nodded, holding the booklet like a promise. As she walked out into the cool afternoon air, she noticed her steps felt lighter. Her back still ached, but differently, like it was waking up, not giving up. And deep inside, she felt something she hadn't in years. Possibility. The next morning, Evelyn stood in her living room, the booklet open on the table. Sunlight poured through the curtains, painting gold across the wooden floor. She felt nervous, like she was about to take an exam. But she remembered Daniel's words: "Start small, move gently, breathe deeply." She placed her feet shoulder-width apart, her toes pointing forward. Her knees relaxed, not locked, not tense. Her hands rested softly on her thighs. She took a deep breath in, filling her lungs until her chest lifted slightly. Then, with an exhale, she began to bend forward, letting her body follow the breath. Her back curved slowly, her spine moving like it was remembering an old song. The stretch was mild, tender, not painful but awakening. She stopped halfway, just where her body told her it was enough. Her hands slid gently down her thighs, her fingers brushing her knees. She held the position for a count of 3. Then she rose back up, vertebra by vertebra, until she stood tall again. Her breath followed her motion, steady and calm. That was 1 knee to toe bend. Simple, but it felt like something deep inside her had shifted. She tried again. This time her movement was smoother, more natural. She felt her hamstrings stretch, her lower back loosen, her shoulders drop. The tension she'd carried for years seemed to soften, just a little. She smiled without realizing it. The rhythm of it, the breath, the bend, the rise, felt almost like a dance. No music, no audience, just her and the quiet sound of her own body moving. She closed her eyes on the third bend and focused on the sensations. Her heartbeat steady, her breath slow, her mind uncluttered. For a few seconds there was peace. She realized that movement didn't have to be a battle. It could be a conversation. Each bend was her body whispering, "I'm still here." She finished her set of 3 and sat on the edge of the sofa. Her back tingled, not with pain but with warmth. It was the warmth of muscles waking, of blood flowing, of energy returning. She looked at her reflection in the window and chuckled softly. "Not bad," she whispered. She took another deep breath, feeling taller, lighter, more herself. It amazed her how something so small could feel so powerful. The booklet called it a micro-movement, but to her it felt monumental. That morning, she promised herself she'd keep going. Not to chase youth, but to reclaim comfort. To remind her body it was made to move, to bend, to rise. And as she brewed her tea and watched the sunlight dance on the counter, she realized something simple and profound. Healing didn't begin with strength. It began with gentleness and the courage to start again. A week later, Evelyn sat once more in the wellness class, notebook in hand. Coach Daniel stood in front of the group, smiling as he spoke about movement and memory. "Your body," he began, "is a collection of stories told through muscles and bones." He paced slowly, his tone calm, almost like a storyteller himself. "When we stop moving, those stories go quiet. But when we move again, even gently, we wake them up." He demonstrated the familiar motion, the knee-to-toe bend, with slow precision. "Each bend," he said, "does more than stretch your legs or ease your back. It resets communication between your joints, your breath, and your brain." Evelyn listened carefully, curious about the science behind what she felt. Daniel explained how bending activates the muscles around the spine, how that gentle motion pumps fluid through the joints, keeping them nourished. He talked about circulation, about the small blood vessels that feed oxygen into tight muscles. "When your knees bend and your body lowers," he said, "you're not just stretching. You're encouraging your spine to realign, reminding your posture what balance feels like." The group nodded, following each word like it was a key unlocking something hidden. Evelyn could feel the truth in his explanation, each movement bringing warmth, each rise bringing lightness. Daniel continued, "Lower back pain often begins when we stop using the muscles meant to support us. They weaken, stiffen, and let gravity take more than its share." He demonstrated again, bending forward with a steady rhythm. "Now when you practice this simple bend," he said, "you wake those muscles. You tell them, 'I still need you.'" Evelyn smiled softly, repeating the motion with the group. Her body responded like a friend, recognizing an old language. He added, "The goal isn't a push, it's to connect. Every breath you take tells your body, you are safe here." As they practiced, Daniel walked among them, offering quiet encouragement. He adjusted a few shoulders, straightened a few backs, but mostly he reminded them to breathe. "Think of your body as a bridge," he said gently. "Your knees are the pillars, your spine is the walkway. Keep it flexible, and it will carry you anywhere." Evelyn felt her spine stretch, her muscles hum with life. She could almost feel her blood flowing more freely, her breath expanding further than before. The class ended, and Daniel smiled. "Mobility isn't about doing more," he said. "It's about doing what matters, with awareness, with care." Evelyn wrote that down before leaving. On her walk home, her steps felt deliberate, her posture upright. Each stride reminded her that science and soul often meet in the same place, motion. And as she turned the corner toward her street, she whispered the words again, quietly to herself. I still need you. Days turned into weeks, and Evelyn found herself waking earlier each morning. The sunlight no longer felt heavy against her skin. It invited her to move. Her routine began quietly, 3 deep breaths, a stretch, and then her knee-to-toe bends. She counted softly under her breath, her body finding rhythm where stiffness once lived. Each bend felt smoother than the last. The first week, she could barely reach her knees. By the third, her fingers brushed the tops of her shoes. It wasn't about how far she went. It was about how free she felt. Her back, once a constant reminder of limits, now felt lighter, stronger. The ache still appeared sometimes, but it no longer owned her. It had become a whisper she could answer with motion. Her garden soon called her back, as if it knew she was ready. She started small, watering the herbs, trimming one bush at a time. The soil was cool and soft beneath her fingertips. When she bent down, her body moved with a grace she hadn't felt in years. She laughed softly, realizing she wasn't thinking about pain. She was simply living. Her neighbor, Mrs. Clark, leaned over the fence one morning and said, "You look brighter these days." Evelyn smiled and replied, "I just started bending again." Mrs. Clark chuckled, not fully understanding, but Evelyn meant every word. Those small bends had changed the way she moved through life. The more she practiced, the more she noticed other changes too. She slept better. Her steps on the stairs no longer made her wince. Even her mood had shifted, lighter, steadier, more hopeful. It amazed her how such a simple habit could ripple through everything. One morning at class, Daniel asked everyone to share their progress. When it was her turn, she hesitated. Then she said, "It's not just my back that feels better. It's like I've remembered how to be kind to my body again." The group clapped quietly, understanding what she meant without needing more words. After class, Daniel told her, progress isn't measured by inches or angles. It's measured by joy. That stayed with her all week. She began ending her sessions with gratitude, thanking her knees, her spine, her breath. It became a ritual, a way of saying, "Thank you for carrying me." And each day, her body answered by carrying her a little further. By the end of the month, she no longer needed the booklet to guide her. The movements were part of her, like breathing or smiling. She didn't move out of fear anymore. She moved because it felt good to be alive, inside her body again. And as she stood one morning, looking at her blooming garden, she whispered a quiet truth to herself. I didn't just regain mobility. I regained trust. The wellness class had grown larger over the months, filled with familiar faces and new ones. Each week, Daniel began with the same calm tone. Let's begin with breath. Evelyn stood among them, steady and present, her body no longer hesitant. She looked around and saw reflections of her own story, gray hair, soft smiles, quiet determination. There was Margaret, who once walked with a cane but now moved freely. There was Paul, whose back had kept him in bed for years, now bending with confidence. Their laughter filled the room, light and warm, like a chorus of small victories. Daniel smiled proudly and said, "You see, healing doesn't belong to one person. It belongs to anyone willing to begin." He guided them through their knee-to-toe bends, the motion flowing like gentle waves. The room breathed together, bend, pause, rise. No one rushed. No one compared. It was a shared rhythm, a quiet dance of resilience. Evelyn felt a sense of belonging she hadn't known she needed. When class ended, they stayed behind, sipping tea and sharing stories. Margaret said, I used to dread mornings. Now I wake up just to move. Paul added, my doctor said my posture looks 10 years younger. The group laughed, but there was pride in their voices. Evelyn listened, smiling, her heart full. She realized that movement had connected them in ways words couldn't. Every bend, every breath, was a reminder that their bodies were still capable of grace. Daniel joined their conversation and said softly, what you've all done is more than exercise. It's community. It's courage. The room fell quiet, not out of silence but out of gratitude. Evelyn thought of the woman she used to be, the one who feared bending, who avoided mirrors. And then she thought of the woman standing there now, strong and grounded. She felt no need to prove anything, only to keep moving forward. A new member, a man in his 70s, approached her shyly. Do these really help? He asked. Evelyn smiled gently. They don't just help, she said. They remind you how to trust your body again. He nodded, his eyes soft with hope, and joined the next class. As they began, Evelyn watched him take his first hesitant bend. She saw in him the same fear she once had, and the same possibility waiting behind it. That evening, as she walked home under the fading sunset, she felt the world hum around her. Her steps were light, her back upright, her heart open. The city seemed slower, kinder, more in rhythm with her breath. She whispered to herself, we're all still learning to move. At her doorstep she paused, stretched once more and smiled. The day had given her more than exercise. It had given her belonging. And in that moment she understood. Healing was never just about the body. It was about connection. To others, to movement, to life itself. The morning light spills across Evelyn's kitchen once more. Her tea steams softly, her back straight, her breath calm and full. She bends forward slowly, hands gliding down her legs in one graceful motion. Her body follows her breath, her spine moving with quiet confidence. When she rises, she feels both grounded and light, like balance itself lives inside her. Outside, the garden sways gently in the breeze. The roses she once feared, she'd never tend again, are in bloom. She steps outside, the sun warm on her skin, the air fresh with promise. Every movement feels like a conversation with life, steady, honest, alive. She smiles, whispering softly, it's not about touching my toes anymore. It's about touching life again. For Evelyn and for everyone who listens, the message is simple. Healing begins not with strength, but with kindness toward the body that carries us. One breath, one bend, one small act of care. That's how freedom returns. And as she moves again, her story becomes a gentle reminder. The best movement is always the one you start today.